If someone had told me when we were crossing this bridge that one day I will be back here introducing the first African-American president, I would have said, you're crazy, you're out of your mind, you don't know what you're talking about. President Barack Obama.
It is a rare honor in this life to follow one of your heroes. And John Lewis is one of my heroes.
That was civil rights icon and Congressman John Lewis introducing President Obama yesterday at Selma, Alabama's Edmund Pettus Bridge. Joining me now from Montgomery, Alabama is Democratic Congresswoman Karen Bass. She is whip on the Congressional Black Caucus and a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee and Judiciary Committee. Congresswoman, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me on.
Well, let me ask you this. What does it mean to you personally to be there in Selma this weekend with everyone from the President of the United States to ordinary people of every race?
Well, it's just been an amazing weekend, and I just have to tell you, the emotion that was in Representative Lewis's voice and the photograph of the two of them hugging each other was an iconic moment in our history. I was a young child during that time, but in Los Angeles, California, I watched the civil rights movement with my father, and so to be there and experience what we did yesterday was just an amazing moment of history.
Absolutely.
Very proud to be there.
It was history. You know, sitting there and recognizing history. There was so much going on there, so many emotions by many of the people there. And, you know, the centerpiece of the issue in Selma, both 50 years ago and this weekend, was voting rights. The Supreme Court has significantly, though, cut the 1965 law, and we have this ongoing debate about voting reforms in primarily red states. What has the impact been in your eyes?
Well, I do have to tell you that that was one of the things that was very powerful, is that on the one hand we were commemorating history, on the other hand that history is staring us in the face right now because it's happening in this moment. And so the fact that the Supreme Court rolled back, as the President said yesterday, one of the most important accomplishments of the civil rights movement, what I hope, just as the President said, is that we will go back to Washington and we will pass legislation to reinforce the Voting Rights Act. And you know, President Bush was sitting there on the stage with President Obama. He signed the extension of the Voting Rights Act. We need for President Obama to sign that extension as well, which means we have to pass it in Congress. And so I'm hoping that my colleagues that were there yesterday will feel the inspiration and will want to be a part of the future, not a part of the past.
How tough of a road, though, will it be to get something passed?
Well, I do think that it'll be difficult. On the other hand, you know, my Republican colleagues, and there's several of them, that are interested in passing an extension of the Voting Rights Act and really correcting what the Supreme Court did. But, you know, you have to get the majority of the caucus, and the Republicans are in control of both houses of Congress. And I was very happy that there were a number of Republicans that were with us on the weekend, and so I'm hoping that they'll go back and talk to their colleagues and say, this is about the future. This is about our country today. We cannot roll back time. We just can't do it.
You just mentioned the Republicans who were there this weekend. What's your interpretation of Speaker John Boehner and Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell not attending yesterday's events?
Well, I was happy that the Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy was there, and I don't know their reasons for not coming. But, you know, perhaps the significance of the 50-year anniversary passed them. It's hard for me to understand how it could, but again, I was happy that Republican leadership was there. And like I said, you know, I'm hoping that the delegation, especially the delegation from Alabama, and they were all there, and that was wonderful to see. And I really hope that they lead the fight going back into Congress and say, you know what? We really have to be in the future. And the idea that voter suppression laws would be passed around our country while we go around the world telling everybody else how to have elections, you know, it really is kind of shameful. This moment in history, we just can't allow it to continue.
That's a very interesting point. You know, the President referenced the Justice Department report this past week, which found patterns of racism from the Ferguson Police Department. I want you to take a listen to what he said.
I rejected the notion that nothing's changed. What happened in Ferguson may not be unique, but it's no longer endemic. It's no longer sanctioned by law or by custom. And before the civil rights movement, it most surely was. We do a disservice to the cause of justice by intimating that bias and discrimination are immutable. that racial division is inherent in America.
Do you agree with that? Is the problem no longer, as the president said, endemic?
Well, I think that the president was making 2 points. And one is that it's absolutely incorrect to say that nothing has changed, because a lot has changed. On the other hand, it's also absolutely incorrect to say that what has happened in Ferguson was an isolated incident. I went to Ferguson. We had a delegation that went there over the King weekend, and I have to tell you that it was shocking to hear how traffic violations are used to raise revenue for the city, and how you can have a city where a large percentage of the population have warrants because they can't afford to pay the traffic violations, and how those laws are used in a racist fashion. So, you know, on the one hand, it's really important that we celebrate and acknowledge our success. On the other hand, it's very important that we not have the type of denial that existed 50 years ago. We were at the museum and we were looking at old videotapes, and we were listening to people from Alabama in the 1950s talking about how racism isn't here, everybody's happy. And so we cannot allow the type of denial that existed in the 1950s to exist right now. It's very important that we move forward.
Absolutely. And I want to switch gears briefly, though, because in a new interview, President Obama made his first comments on the Hillary Clinton email controversy. Here's what he said.
Mr. President, when did you first learn that Hillary Clinton used an email system outside the U.S. government for official business while she was Secretary of State?
At the same time, everybody else learned it through news reports.
Were you disappointed?
Let me just say that Hillary Clinton is and has been an outstanding public servant. She was a great Secretary of State for me. The policy of my administration is to encourage transparency.
The president says he's glad Hillary Clinton asked for her emails to be released. Why let it get to this point, though? And perhaps more importantly, does this hurt her long term?
Well, I don't think that it does, but I just have to tell you, when I heard about the emails, because it's my colleagues that have the Benghazi investigation going on, and I guess now they have something to do, because clearly all of the reports that came out about Benghazi said that there was no conspiracy there was no malpractice on her part. So I guess the members of the Benghazi task force will be very busy going through all those emails once they've been released.
Yeah, there's definitely interest in that.
I think this is a story. This is a story that'll probably go away in a few months.
Oh, okay. Well, you know, so far, though, Hillary Clinton's only response, a 3-sentence tweet sent out at 11:30 at night. In your eyes, is that adequate, or does she really need to come out and say much more and put this to rest?
I'm sure we will hear much more from her as time goes on.
Yeah. Well, are you worried that the Democrats don't appear to have any other real contenders for 2016?
Well, I'm not worried about that. I mean, you know, I'm excited about her candidacy. I'm certainly on board and want to see what moves forward. But, you know, I think that the Clintons have been investigated more than any two people in our history. And if there was something there, I think that they would have found it out. And so, to me, this is just consistent with the narrative that has happened for the last 20 or 30 years with the Clinton family. So we'll see as we move forward. I think it's going to be an exciting electoral season.
Indeed. All right. Well, I want to thank you very much, Congresswoman, for being with us today.
Thanks.